Good morning and War Eagle War Report family. It's your man Ike Jones. I am here on the morning drop today. Today is January 3rd, 2023, and we're here talking about Auburn running back Tank Bigsby. He's declared for the NFL draft. Where does he rank all time as far as Auburn running backs? Let's drop in and discuss it.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
The morning drop right here, sponsored by rogueshop.com. I'd be remiss not to say that our thoughts are definitely with the family and the player of DeMar Hamlin this morning. I did not watch the game and have refused to watch clips or replays of what happened, but definitely heard the reports and tragic incident on the football field. Hopefully everything turns out okay with he and his family can get through this whole situation, but definitely thoughts with them this morning. But today, for the morning drop, we are talking about Tank Bigsby, man. Just a fabulous player for Auburn over the last 3 years. But want to know what you all think about where he ranks all time. So let's just talk about the statistics of it all, right? Let's talk about where he is statistically with everything. Well, before we get into that, y'all know it's Morning Drop sponsored by Rogue Shop. Make sure you head over to rogueshop.com if you want to be able to get some of the best, or actually America's #1 online dispensary. So if you want to be able to visit that place, use code REPORT for 10% off of your purchase to let them know that the War Report sent you over there. And let us know, reviews if you guys have had an opportunity to do it. Tell us how your experience has been over there. I'm sure Richard and the folks at the Roast Shop would love to hear that feedback. If you're trying to comment on the video right now and you can't in the live chat, it's because you're not a member of the War Report. You need to do that. In addition to that, we want you to get out there and be an evangelist for the War Report and tell other people about it. So if you have a membership, maybe you want to share a membership and you can go ahead and purchase one of those and somebody can get one for free on you with membership gifting. It's a really easy thing to be able to do from the live chat. Outside of that, y'all need to get in here and share this video, share the live. What up, B Will? How you doing this morning, man?
Good, man. How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Share the video so we can have more people part of this conversation. It's kind of tough, man. I know a lot of people don't really want to talk and get back to, business as usual sports stuff this morning. But hey, if you want to talk about something else, we can definitely do that here. Like the video before you get out of here, whether you're watching this live or you are rewatching it later, and subscribe to the channel. All right. So Tank Bigsby is who we're talking about this morning. And I'm going to get into the career numbers. So 2020 was his first season at Auburn. Did not come into that season. So here's the crazy thing about it. That's a COVID year, right? So his freshman year was COVID year. Didn't come into the season as the starter. 834 total rushing yards. Again, not in starting duty initially. He was kind of a revelation in the Georgia game. The Georgia game was the first game of the season. We were out there getting absolutely manhandled by Georgia in the Georgia Dome. And Tank comes into the game in kickoff duty, essentially, initially. And then he gets a couple of carries late in the game after the presumed starter for the season goes out. I think it was DJ the starter that game.
Was it DJ?
I think it was.
I know
DJ.
Shivers. I feel like Shivers
was the one that came into the season as the starter. I don't know that
right,
started that
That's
game
right.
or not.
I
think
sure.
it might have been
remember.
DJ. Yeah, but anyway, Tank was not the starter, and still ended up with in those 10 games, 834 yards that season. Then 2021, he was the guy, right? Everybody knew out the gate he was going to be the guy. Played the vast majority of those games, set out a couple of times throughout the season with some injury stuff, right? So he played most of the season. Well, actually, 2020 was when he had the injury situations throughout the season, like in a couple of spots. But 2021, he was here for the vast majority of that. 1,099 yards, and that's including the bowl game there. And then last year, 970 yards, just 30 yards shy of 1,000 yards for that season. With all of that being said, Tank Bigsby ends up number 8 overall in rushing touchdowns for Auburn and number 7 overall in career rushing yardage. COVID shortened season where he wasn't the starter, and some injury stuff. And listen, let's be clear, he was playing behind some of the worst blocking that any running back has had to deal with in a while.
Yeah.
So, with all of that being considered, where would you put Tank Bigsby in the pantheon of Auburn running backs? So she had a lot of great running backs. So this makes it difficult because you just like, man, you don't want to disrespect some people. But where does Tank Bigsby rest?
All right. So I've got to start this by putting it in perspective of the guys who I know absolutely were better Auburn running backs than Tank. And that's, again, this is not disrespectful. This is based on, even if they did have better offensive line play or offenses suited these running backs better, they still were home run hitters. They still got it done. The offense rested on them, and they met that challenge. Cadillac. And this is not in any particular order. I'm just saying these are guys in front of Tank.
Mm-hmm.
Cadillac. He was. I don't even think I need to say anything else. You remember the highlights, you know who it was. I'm back and forth on Ronnie. Yeah, I'm Ronnie Brown. And it's not because you couldn't tell me. You could do what people often get sucked into, which is hey, well, LeBron's better because he's got more rebounds and assists. I don't do it that way. Because, yes, I'm sure Tank has more yards than a Ronnie Brown. Because Ronnie Brown was splitting time, though. He wasn't the number one back. And Tank was for like 2.25 seasons. So, of course, it's not going to be the same as yardage or whatever. But I feel like Ronnie Brown was a sturdy back. Power. He was a power back. Tank is a powerful back. But Ronnie was just a bit of a monster. And he carried the offense. He carried the offense at times. It's really hard for me. Oh, man. I would say that Tank is I can't put Kerryon over Tank. I think the injury concerns would take a little bit away from Kerryon. He was such a smart runner. Such a smart and patient runner. And he also had the benefit in his last year of a competent quarterback, a good offensive line, a full offense that made it easier to do what he did. I would have loved to see a Tank Bigsby in 2017 for his junior season. You know, that would have been outstanding. But going back a bit, it's crazy because I got to put Trey Mason up there too, man. I'm sorry. Trey Mason didn't get hurt. He didn't come off the field.
Trey Mason is the guy who's right above him in the list as far as total career yards.
Yeah. I mean, of course, some of that is system. Gus's thing had just gotten here. It was working. It was working great. And when you got Nick Marshall at quarterback, that takes a little pressure off the running back, allows you to do some stuff. When you got Jay Prosh, I know it, but Trey Mason got 1,000 yards before 2013. In 2012, when we were a terrible team, Trey Mason got 1,000 yards when he was the only good thing about our offense. So that was not a fluke. 2013 wasn't just the things around Trey Mason. That was Trey Mason being allowed to be his best. So that's recent memory. Let's go back a little bit. Now I'm thinking about, I don't have the memories of Stephen Davis that a lot of other people do. I've seen Stephen Davis highlights. It's hard for me personally to put Stephen Davis in perspective. I was not an Auburn football fan until I got to Auburn in 2002. I miss Stephen Davis. I don't know what his impact was here, how much
he was a beast for sure.
He left early, so I know he was a beast. He left early at a time where everybody wasn't going early. So I know he was good, but maybe you could help me with that, because I those are the three I know for sure in front of Tank. So I would personally have him fifth right now, because Bo Jackson's always going to be number one. So
all right, so let's take it out of like all-time history and let's just keep it within the last 20 years, right? So
okay.
in the 2000s, I guess we'll say, where does he rank? So that would mean that you still got Carnell, you still got Ronnie, you still got Trey, you got guys like Cameron Artis Painter in that area, Kerryon Johnson, who you mentioned, Ben Tate would be in there. Stephen Davis would not. So
okay.
where does he rank in the 2000s for you? Number 5 right there, or like? because you already mentioned Ronnie, Trey Mason, so that would be put him 4, right? Trey Mason, Ronnie, Cadillac.
Yeah. It's tough because I see Lawrence Robinson right here saying put Kenny Irons over Tank, and honestly, production wise, ability, like I still remember distinctly, I'm about to put up 200 yards on LSU, and then he goes and puts up 200 yards on LSU. Who has ever done that? That is outrageous. Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. It's tough for me to make that call when 2 of Tank's 3 years were him behind an offensive line that wasn't good in an offense where the OCs were just determined to throw when running was our best bet. It's so hard for me to parse that. How do I say what Tank could have done if Cadillac had been the head coach for his 2.5 years here? Then I think he'd be leaving with more records. His ability and what he showed, I don't think they quite matched up because things weren't set for him the way things were set for a Kenny Irons in a ball control, play defense type team that Tuberville had set up for him. You know what I mean? So Kenny Irons that's close. It's really close. That's really close. Ooh. I don't know, man. I'm stuck now. You got to help me out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I put him number 4 on that list behind the 3 that you mentioned.
Yeah.
As good as I feel like some of these other guys, and then like just from a career rushing standpoint, Ben Tate had more yards, right? So
Right.
Definitely a phenomenal back there within that. Again, we're talking about 2000s running backs there.
Mhm.
But I don't in my mind, Tank Bigsby doing what he did in the offense that he was working within
Mhm.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like for him to even sniff 1,000 yards in an offense that you didn't really have to worry about whether or not we were going to throw the ball. Like it's different when everybody's like a run first thing and we're all just grinding it out. But like in an era where people are built to be able to just take away what you do best, and people were like, we're not going to let them run the ball, and he still gets 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
going to let them run the ball, and he still, scores multiple touchdowns in that game
Mhm.
with an offensive line that nobody thought was very good at blocking.
Right. Right.
Like everybody thought the offensive line was just okay. Some people thought it was terrible, and he still put up the numbers that he did. Tank Bigsby to me needs to be in that conversation for top 5 at least in the 2000s backs. Like I said, it's difficult when because as we get later into the if we're just talking about the last decade, right, since 2013, right, so that takes Trey Mason out of the conversation. Carnell, like he's number 1 to me.
Mhm.
Because then you get into the Kerryon Johnson conversation, and I think Kerryon was a good back, right? Don't get me wrong. Kerryon had 1,300 yards in that 2017 season.
Right.
But he also had a little bit more competent passing game to complement him.
Mhm.
And I would say that he had a better offensive line for some of those seasons in which he was playing. But the thing about Kerryon is he really was only the feature back for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And so 2017 for sure. 2016, that's where he got hurt about a third of the way into the season, and that's when Petway took over. So
I say if you select,
Yeah.
like if you put a combination of all the games that he played where he was the
Right.
number 1 back, you probably get 2 full seasons.
Right.
And,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
he did what he did with just that amount of time. But then again, you look at Tank, he didn't. I don't know, like who was the guy that helped Tank Bigsby out to make his job easier?
I don't know who.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, he as a true freshman, he came in and instantly flashed. I remember the Georgia game in 2020 when our line was getting obliterated. And he didn't have any big runs, but he made a couple of 1-yard runs out of what should have been negative 3-yard runs, and caught a couple of passes out of the backfield when Bo was just bailing out because he was under so much duress. I'm like, man, this guy's gonna be good because we shouldn't be getting anything, but we're gaining positive yards only because of what he's doing at the running back position right now. And you knew that he was special then, but that was a true freshman, a guy who hadn't prepared, who didn't have a fall. Oh, I know he didn't have a spring. I don't know if he got any fall reps, but
Right.
you're getting prepared to be the third string running back. And by the second game, you're looking like the first string running back. He was special. And it's a shame we didn't get a chance to really see what he could do, man. It's just, I mean,
And
I think we did later, but you want to know if we had been competent and sturdy at all positions, what would Tank have been able to do for Auburn, man? I think it would have been historic.
And that's the thing. That's the word I really like to use when I talk about Tank Bigsby, because he's a special kind of athlete, man. He just
Yeah.
did special things when he had the opportunity, and he didn't really seem to shrink in big moments, right? Like
Right.
you didn't find in big games where Tank was just absent. Like teams were going to come in and they were going to focus on Tank, and he might not have had like he didn't have that. The one thing I will say, he didn't have that one special game that you look back and you like, yo,
Right. Right.
Tank,
Right.
that game was just like he had a couple. Oh, he made Ole Miss look silly quite a few times in his career, but I don't know that you had that special big. But I don't know that he had a lot of big game opportunities either,
That's
because
the
his team
problem.
wasn't very good.
Teams were not good. We were out of it. We weren't in the race for the West
Right.
while he was here. We weren't like, okay, well, if we win this game, we're gonna actually win the division. We didn't have those types of games, or a game. Well, they beat us last year, and we're trying to get it back, and now they're undefeated. Those games didn't exist during his tenure. The offensive line had suffered to the point where the entire offense has suffered, and now he's the best thing about the offense. People keyed in on him. He still is somewhat productive, but it's nothing like what it should have been if we're going to compare him to the greats and the situations that they were in.
Yeah. Well, we definitely want to hear from you all here in the chat. We'll get to you all's questions. We appreciate you dropping in with us. Once again, sponsored by Rogue Shop. Hit up rogueshop.com using code rapport. If you can't chat in the live chats because you're not a member of the War Report, we do restrict these to members. But we're going to get here into a few comments before we get out of here. We talked about that a lot longer than I thought we would. But anyway, 22 Busy jumps in and says, when I saw the stat for his yards after contact was more than the yards from scrimmage, it changed my perception. And this is what I mean about him being special, right?
Mhm.
Like, he was frequently having to dance in the backfield, break tackles before he even gets to the line of scrimmage to be able to make yards at all. And for him to land in the top 10 in total yards in his career, with a lot of that being after contact, a lot of it being before he gets to the line of scrimmage, that to me is what makes him special.
Mhm. Yeah. It's it's laughable to have more yards after contact than you get yards before scrimmage, before contact. It's ridiculous, man.
We have here Lawrence Robinson, who says Kerryon really only had one good year. 2017, I think, was the year where he was like, oh, okay, yeah, Kerryon could be some special. You saw flashes of it in 2016, but 2017 was really the year for him.
Yeah, because he stayed on the field. He was healthy enough to show it for a full season.
Yeah, up until
Yeah,
that
he was
Georgia. I mean, excuse me, it was the Bama game where
right. The shoulder came out. Yeah.
it's tragic. Haley says if the table had been set up for him, I think he would have been up there with Caddy and Ronnie.
I agree.
That's fair.
I agree.
What's crazy is we think about Cadillac and Ronnie, like they were sharing a backfield, and both of them are still like, how many times in the history of anything can you say you have Jarquez and Tank probably could have been a Cadillac and Ronnie had we really decided the last 4 games of last season was how all of last season was going to go.
Oh man, don't say that. That hurts. Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
But they were that level of special running back where we was like, if we're just gonna feed these two guys consistently the entirety of the year, they could have had that kind of impact, I think, on our offense. But we decided that that balance was more important than dominance, I guess, if that's a good way to put it. Lawrence Robinson says also games we could have won had Tank been allowed to take over. He comes back and said Tank had a bunch of what if games had he been given more carries against South Carolina if he stays in bounds against Bama. The whole stay in bounds against Bama, like I like people ding him way too much, in my opinion, too much for that whole situation.
Right.
But the South Carolina one, 100%. Like I was upset for Tank and the South Carolina game because I was like, this man is out here abusing South Carolina, and we just decided with like 6 minutes left in the game we weren't going to give him the ball anymore. And I
Yeah.
did not understand that. I get that at the point in time we were down, but there were 6 minutes left in the game, man. It's plenty of time for you to run the ball. You get
Yeah.
a good 4 or 5 minute drive together and you go down there and score, you win.
Yeah.
But we decided we wanted to throw the ball or do I did not understand that game whatsoever, why he didn't touch the ball more that game. Um looking at how we finished the season, you have to wonder why he wasn't featured more, or just again, the running game wasn't featured more earlier in this season. Like I just don't get why. I don't get why. that's the bottom line. I don't get why. I don't understand. Ben Bloodworth says Tank is number one in number of headphones given to teammates. That is absolutely true. If any running back prior to this season was out giving headphones out the way Tank Bigsby was, Auburn would have had a lot of sanctions that they had to deal with, because there's no way you could convince me that that was not illegal. So all right, man. Well, we are going to get out of here. We appreciate you guys coming in. Continue the conversation, man. Tank Bigsby, where does he rank? Is he in your top 10 all time? Is he in your top? If he's not in your top 10 in the 2000s, then I just think you're being petty.
Yeah.
But if he's is he your top 10 all time, where does he rank? Continue that conversation. Share the video. Thank y'all for dropping in here with us. Once again, sponsored by Rogue Shop. Head over to rogueshop.com using code RAPPORT. If you want to become a member of the War Rapport, do that. If you guys don't know, if you're a patron, yesterday I spent about an hour on live talking through. I need to come back to the camera so I can talk about this. I spent about an hour on live yesterday talking about Hugh Freeze and his system. We went through some game footage from a Liberty game. And so we went and just kind of looked through play by play for that kind of stuff. I'm going to be doing a couple of more of those this week, but you got to be a patron to see those, not just a member. You got to be a patron to get on those film breakdowns like that. We just sat on live for an hour going through footage. So if you guys want to do that sort of thing, I'm probably going to be doing that again today. Again, that's going to be a patron only stream. So during this downtime for football, we got time to get in and dive into that sort of thing. Got to be a member to do that. If you want to gift a membership, you can do that right now. Make sure that you are spreading the word, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, sharing the content. We appreciate all of that. But we are out of here, man. War Eagle, until the next time. Peace.
Peace.